Hey everybody, we've got a bad one today. Can I beat XCOM 2 War of the Chosen using only secondary weapons in combat? So the rangers can only use their swords, the specialists can only use their gremlins, etc, etc. Now before I get into the rules, I would like to give a quick plug to my Patreon. For $3 a month, you can help me keep putting out content regularly and get some great perks, including 3 to 4 days early access to videos like this one. The link is in the description if you'd like to check it out, and a huge thanks to the people who have become patrons. You guys are my biggest supporters, and I'm really grateful to have you. Now for the rules. Pretty similar to the last one, honestly, but a few notable differences. We're playing on veteran difficulty, we're playing on honest man, we can only attack with the soldier's secondary weapon, we can't use any actions that involve the soldier's primary weapon, we can't use weapon mods since they attach to primary weapons only, they'd be pretty pointless. No PCS upgrades, and the only utility items and heavy weapons that we're allowed to use are those that work in tandem with the soldier's secondary weapon. So sharpshooters and Templars can use special ammo with their pistols, specialists can use medikits with their gremlins, grenadiers can use grenades with the grenade launcher, and Sparks can actually use heavy weapons since it fires from the bit. Beyond that, all other utility items and heavy weapons are out, with the one exception of the Skulljack, which we are allowed to use for story progression purposes only. And with all that out of the way, I can honestly say this is the worst run I've ever done. Even worse than PsyOps only. I mean, let's just look at the first mission as an example. Our rookies literally can't do anything. They're not allowed to use their gun or their grenades. We can only use grenades with our grenadiers, no one else. I mean, rookies don't even have a second weapon whatsoever, so that should tell you how bad this is gonna be. So how the heck are we gonna beat the Gatecrasher mission? We have to eliminate all the enemies to win, and we have to win in order to progress the campaign. And the answer is actually Viper Bait here. He can use his Ripjack attack since that is his secondary weapon, but that does mean we can only attack with a single soldier, 1 out of 4. And what's even worse is the only Ripjack ability the skirmishers start with has a 5-turn cooldown. So once we attack, we cannot attack again for another 5 turns. So that means even if we take out an enemy when we attack and that we don't miss, the rest of the pod will still be coming for us, and we are completely unable to fight back. Now the footage you're watching here is the first attempt. The basic strat once we've activated the first pod by taking out the first enemy is to try and break line of sight with the remaining troopers until we can use the Ripjack again. Now here, while we're trying to avoid the advent troopers, we end up activating the second pod before we finished with the first one. That's an automatic reload if that happens. Trying to survive attacks from 2 enemies is bad enough, 5 isn't even worth trying. Now on the reload, we almost get our concealment blown by some civilians. We were literally 1 tile off that happening. So nice try, civilians, you're gonna have to do better than that. Oh, come on. And of course this activates a pod at the same time. It seems the new challenge run is just like the old challenge run. So we are able to take out one of the troopers, and then it's literally just a matter of running away as fast as we can until the Ripjack's cooldown is finished. And when breaking line of sight isn't possible, we want to stay in full cover and hunker down as much as we can. The caveat is if Viper Bait can't get into full cover, then we want to place the rookies in half cover as well. We never want the skirmisher to be the juiciest target for Advent. If he falls, it's game over. We'd have no soldiers left who can do anything. So losing the rookies is obviously not ideal, but it's at least not an instant end to the run like losing the skirmisher is. So it's better to lose the rookies if we have to lose somebody. We do eventually get all 3 troops in the first pod, so that means we get to repeat this horrible process all over again for the next pod. Except this time it's even worse. The captain is much more dangerous than regular troops. Now this is partly because it can mark us, which significantly increases the odds of us getting shot, but more importantly than that, it's because it's not a one-shot with the Ripjack. It has 6 health and our attack is only going to do 4 damage. So we can attack this thing, pull it in right next to us, and then it's going to get to attack on its turn. So the main thing we want to do with the captain is to use the Ripjack as the first action of Viperbait's turn. This way he still has a second action so he can move and take some cover after he attacks. Now the captain is the only enemy left by this stage and I deliberately left him for last. And while we're waiting to use our Ripjack again, the captain actually takes out Drifter. Yeah, that's my character. I'm not happy about this, I gotta say. Now, Quiet Paws also gets ganked, but he at least goes into bleed out, and we thankfully are able to finish the captain and blow up the monument before we lose him. So only 1 soldier perished on the mission, and that's honestly not too bad when you consider the length of this mission. 57 turns. We were an hour into the stream by the time we got past the first mission. And I could have used a Templar on this mission since they have an auto pistol as their second weapon. They'd be able to attack every turn, but I really think that would have been worse. The pistol isn't even guaranteed to one-shot a basic trooper, and they wouldn't have been able to attack and then move away like the skirmisher. So they probably would have been killed really quickly and then the mission would be a failure. So as bad as having to stall for 57 turns with the skirmisher was, I still think it was the best play. I might be wrong on that, who knows. But either way, I think we can agree that I wasn't exaggerating when I said this is the worst challenge run I've done. This is only the first mission, and you want to know something crazy? The second mission is even worse than Gatecrasher. Since all the soldiers on the first mission are injured, we can only send rookies out on the next one. And as we've already established, rookies are incapable of attacking. Now, given this mission can only be won by eliminating all the enemies, it is literally impossible for us to beat. So I just send the team in and then evac out on the first turn. I was hoping they would get some XP just for going out on the mission and we'd get some promotions, but it's not to be. All our rookies are still rookies and still as useless as ever. And losing this mission is quite bad, as it means we miss out on the early game engineer that's really going to slow down our progress in the Avenger. But like I said, there's literally nothing we can do about it. The only way you could win this mission is if you just kept redoing Gatecrasher until you didn't get any injuries, then you'd be able to send soldiers out who got promotions on the first mission. But I didn't think it was that important, I didn't want to do that. And look at this! Dr. Bob and Dr. Bobette have a high bond score. I cannot think of anything more appropriate. And this may be the only time I ever see 2 rookies bonded. Normally sending them on a mission to level up their bond would mean that they're not rookies anymore. Also, I did begin constructing the GTS straight after Gatecrasher. We need some promotions quite desperately. This is the other reason we want to start with the skirmishers. We can increase the construction time of the GTS and start promoting our people faster. And in terms of promotions and what soldiers we want to train, specialists are pretty useless initially. Until they get combat protocol at corporal level, they are unable to attack whatsoever. And given that they can't attack, good luck leveling them up from squaddy to corporal. Grenadiers are decent, but they can only carry 2 grenades, so once they've used those 2 grenades, they can't attack anymore, and they're not very useful. Rangers can use their sword slash attack, which is really good, infinite uses and no cooldown time. It does have the obvious disadvantage that it's a melee weapon, so you do have to get very close to the bad guys. And sharpshooters can use their pistols. This is really good. We can shoot. We never have to worry about reloading. Very useful class to have. And so I'm thinking at least early on, rangers and sharpshooters are gonna be the most useful classes. I trained Dr. Bob as a sharpshooter, but I'm gonna hold off on using Bobette for now. Now that may seem like a weird strategy, as surely I want to be making use of their bond, right? Well, there is a reason for it that will become apparent much later in the run, assuming we survive that long, that is. Now the third mission is the Horde sit rep, and this is actually pretty great. We don't have to kill any enemies on this mission, we just have to outrun them. And also, Medic is our extra soldier that we can pick up, and he's once again a sharpshooter, not a specialist. Now given how bad sharpshooters are on this run, I'm happy about this, but this man's determination to not live up to his namesake is honestly pretty impressive. Once we've grabbed the VIP and Medic, we head into a nearby second story building. It was really fortunate that a ladder was right next to the pickup area, so we could climb up there to be safe. We then start running as fast as we can back to the evac zone, and everyone is able to get to the evac zone. Now this makes me wonder if I should always play these missions this way, just ignore the lost and run past them all. I guess we'll see. Also, look at this, still no promotions even though the mission was successful. So this makes me think XP is obtained purely from killing enemies and you get 0 for completing mission objectives. I didn't know that. And so the Retaliation mission is up next, and by this time we can actually field a squad of 4 soldiers who can all attack. Yeah, we're setting the bar pretty low on this one, but we'll take the wins where we can. Now we're fielding 2 grenadiers and 2 sharpshooters. It's not ideal, but it's much better than rookies who can't do anything. Now I go into the mission expecting to lose, but I'm thinking if we can at least take out a few enemies and get some XP, that will be really good. And as for the Chosen, the only chance we really have of being able to deal with them is if they're weak to explosives. So the Hunter spawns in, and look at that, he's weak to explosives. We actually got some good RNG. Who are you, game, and what have you done with the real XCOM 2? Now he is immune to melee and he has regeneration, which is some pretty bad strengths, but I'm not going to complain. This is the best Chosen for us to deal with early game, and he has the weakness we need. We got really lucky here. I just need to be able to hang on to our grenades until we encounter the big guy, and we might even win the mission. Of course, Advent has other plans. We get a bad pod activation halfway through our turn, which sends everything spiraling out of control really quickly. We are able to one-shot the trooper with a pistol shot, which is really good, or at least I think it's a good thing. See, on the enemy turn, the sectoid takes up full cover in high ground above us and then raises the trooper as a zombie. So that's not ideal. Plus a faceless has been unveiled at the same time. So we need to deal with the sectoid pod quickly since the faceless is going to be coming for us. This means using 2 grenades to destroy its cover and then finishing it off with pistols. The faceless then rocks up on the next turn and our pistols just are not doing enough damage, so we're forced to use another grenade, and even that's not enough to take this thing down. So we have to use a second grenade, and now we have none left for the hunter. We still push on and we come across another trooper and a sectoid, and the sectoid is once again in full cover, and even if it wasn't, the sharpshooters are the only soldiers who can still attack. They can only use pistols, and there's only 2 of them, so we're not going to be doing a lot of damage, and if this thing mind controls any of our soldiers, we won't be able to evac. On top of all that, the hunter is no doubt closing in on us as we speak. So I decide just to evac. That's the safer play. We do take out the trooper on the way out, so that gives us some more XP, and we didn't lose any soldiers. And this mission is why I'm not even bothering trying to expand to other regions just yet. We're going to be losing a lot of missions early on, so there's really no point in contacting a region just to lose it again. With our first council drop, we can now start using resistance orders. I can choose between having our shred attacks shred 1 extra point of armor, or reducing chosen knowledge growth by 33%. And I actually go for the chosen knowledge perk. Having extra shredding would be really good, but those chosen assault missions can literally end the run if we lose them, and it's going to be a very long time before we're ready to take on any chosen strongholds ourselves. So I think slowing down the chosen and buying ourselves as much time as possible is going to be the better play. I guess we'll see if I end up being right or not. Then it's time for another guerrilla op. We're sneaking along this roof, and of course there's a badly placed turret that blows our concealment. I was really angry at this. Literally every single mission this run where we've started with concealment, we've had it blown by garbage placement of units. And it happened a lot in the previous run too. I'm getting really sick and tired of it. So we bring the activated Stun Lancer down to 1 HP. Medic doesn't have line of sight, so I place him on Overwatch to hopefully take it out when it inevitably runs up onto the roof to melee us. Well, sure enough, here comes the Stun Lancer, but Medic doesn't even try to shoot it. Yeah, apparently he doesn't have line of sight on the Lancer. He doesn't have line of sight on the Lancer. My goodness, I hope they make some changes to line of sight in XCOM 3 because this is absurd. And it leads to us losing a soldier on the next enemy turn, so I decide we just need to evac out. The dark event that will now trigger is really bad, Vigilance. That's going to increase enemy detection radii. But then when I stop to think about it, we always just end up having our concealment being lost from nonsense anyway, so it's probably not going to make any difference. I bring our newly recruited Reaper on the supply raid. Between her claymore and a grenade, we can wipe out the first pod instantly. But the problem is she only has one claymore, so after that's used up, she's pretty useless apart from scouting. I try to take down the next pod, but a third pod patrols into us during the fight. Now, dealing with one pod on its own, given our limited options, is difficult enough, let alone two. So it's another evac out, but at least we didn't lose any soldiers this time. Alright, how about a Resistance Council mission, where we can't evac until the game lets us? Yeah, I'm sure that'll go better than the last couple of missions. So on the enemy's first turn, they lock our ranger into place by getting too close to her. If she moves, we'll blow concealment. And this is of course because that Vigilance dark event has activated. So I decide the better play is to just Overwatch ambush the pod and let them patrol into us. Now Christmas is the only one who can actually Overwatch, and he apparently doesn't have line of sight on anything, so we don't shoot at all. So yeah, that was a pretty good plan on my part. I go for a slash on the Viper and we get a dodge, so our attack only inflicts 1 damage. Yes, 1 HP of damage. The second slash then inflicts 3 damage, which is a minimum roll. That's going to mean we have to use a grenade to finish the snack off. This of course leaves the mech to bombard us into oblivion on the next turn. Alright, so it's our turn again. I try for a slash first, as I'd really like to save our last grenade. If we can get some good damage rolls, we can take this thing out without shredding it. Well, our first attack, and we again roll minimum damage with the sword. And since the mech has armor, that means it takes 1 damage also. So these bad damage rolls mean we're going to have to use our last grenade to shred this thing. But even when we do that, the mech survives with 1 HP. Now thankfully it misses and we don't lose anybody, but we're now down to 3 soldiers in terms of attack strength since the Grenadier can't do anything else. And that was only the first 2 enemies, we've got a lot more to go. Such as this next pod, which consists of 3 Advent soldiers. We take down one of them and the 2 survivors thankfully both miss with their attacks. Maybe our luck is starting to turn around. On the next turn we can only finish the captain. This leaves the Purifier to light Leo on fire. And our options to take this thing down are kinda limited, so I decide just to charge in with one of the rangers and hope that it doesn't explode, which it thankfully doesn't. Once we reach the VIP, it's time to hold off the reinforcements. I decide to move towards one of the reinforcement drop areas, and the reason for this is because it'll put more distance between us and the other reinforcement site. So we'll be right on top of one lot of reinforcements, but we'll be further away from the others. Separating the pods like this might make them easier to deal with, that's what I'm hoping. So a trooper and a sectoid drop down on top of us. We're able to deal with the trooper, but the sectoid panics Leo. He's not having a good mission this one. Now it doesn't have much health left, so we can easily dispose of it on our turn, that's not a problem. The bigger issue is the other pod is quickly closing in on us. Plus the next wave of reinforcements that's going to drop in on us is inbound as well. So I decide just to take cover and draw the enemies in closer. We're getting swarmed by bad guys now, and another sectoid raises a zombie. The evac zone thankfully arrives, but not everyone can make it there this turn. So we're going to need to stick around for one more turn and thin out the herd a bit. I focus on the sectoid, partly because the rangers will do big damage with their blades, and also because if we get rid of it, we'll get rid of the zombie as well, so it's 2 enemies for the price of 1. But of course, once our turn is over, then the onslaught from the remaining troopers comes, and they send kindness into bleed out. Now fortunately, Leo is right next to her since they both slashed at the sectoid. He can pick her up and still reach the evac zone this turn, and somehow everyone makes it out alive. Given how that mission started with that first pod, I didn't think there was any way in the world that was going to happen. And so with this victory, that makes our 3rd successful mission for the campaign. Yeah, we're in April and we've only won 3 missions. Now we do get some promotions here, finally. The Rangers I'm giving Bladestorm since we need all the damage output we can get. And this run is probably the only time I actually take blast padding over Shredder on the Grenadiers. And because we won the mission, we now have an engineer. Plus, we soon pick up a second one as a scanning reward. This is really good. Now we can get to work on building more facilities. The Resistance Ring and the Proving Grounds are the 2 that I want. And the black market is available by now. I burned through all of our intel to buy a Grenadier and halve our research time for plated armor. Now Grenadiers aren't very good in this run, but you saw the injuries we took on that last mission. And that last mission was a victory. It was one of the better missions that we've had lately. So we need as many healthy soldiers as we can get. And plus, I'm not planning to expand to other regions until we can actually win missions reliably. We don't need our intel for anything else right now, so I figure we might as well spend it. We have another guerrilla op, and guess how our concealment gets blown? Yeah, there's a pod lurking just around the corner, and I run right into them. And even worse, the hunter spawns in on this one. Now we do get a bit lucky, he spawns right in front of us. This means we can easily hit him with a grenade for big damage, and since we're rocking mag pistols by now, I move medic in to get the flank, and that activates another pod. I decide to run our Ranger Blue out to slash the trooper. This means she'll very likely fall to the Stun Lancer on the next turn, but I don't know what else to do. Someone is probably going to fall to the Stun Lancer anyway, so we might as well take down as many Advent with us while we can. Now we actually get lucky and the Priest puts Blue into stasis. That's going to protect her from the Lancer. Now the Lancer does charge in to get Volpez instead, but this puts it in the middle of our squad and we're going to have a much better chance of taking it down here. Now the Hunter has dazed Medic and Bob, but Volpez wrecks him with her final grenade. This takes all his health, and once he's gone, the boys lose their daze and they're ready to open fire on the Stun Lancer, and they're able to finish it off. So we're down to just the Priest. We may actually win this. Oh, never mind, the game is throwing reinforcements at us as well. This just never ends. Now we only have 3 soldiers who can attack, and we need to be destroying the relays to stop the turn timer running out as well. So we're having to use one of our attacks on those things each turn. This is really brutal. However, we then get some really good luck. The Priest uses Holy Warrior on the newly arrived Stun Lancer. We need Medic to make a 75% shot with his pistol. He hits, and he nails a huge crit for 5 damage. So as long as Bob can make this 67% shot, and he does, that wipes out the Priest and the Lancer. Our chances of surviving just went up significantly. And since Volpez can't attack, I'm just moving her up to the objective. She'll still be able to plant the X4 for us. And while she's running out there, she's serving as bait. She has a point of armor thanks to blast padding, so it's better Advent fires at her rather than our other squishier troopers. And somehow we actually win, and without losing any soldiers. We fought off the Hunter and a wave of reinforcements, and we still completed the objective in time. Maybe things are finally turning around. And the best part is we now have some Stun Lancer corpses. Yeah, this is the first mission we've gathered corpses from since Gatecrasher. And Stun Lancers let us build Arc Blades, which will give our Rangers a further damage boost. Or at least they would if we had enough alloys to build them. The next Retaliation mission is then up, and Advent is deploying mutons now. Now mutons counter our ranges really well, so this mission goes fairly badly.
This looks a little ugly.
Yeah, I think it's time to evac. However, some great news then arrives. We've got a covert op for +1 damage on our pistols, and just like in the sharpshooters video, this may end up being a run saver. We've also upgraded our Reaper to a Sergeant by this time, and this is our first Sergeant. It's taken a while, but when you can't eliminate enemies, getting XP is really slow, and we've only been able to level her up thanks to covert ops. Now we are quite low on supplies, but thankfully we can sell all our weapon mods, our PCS upgrades, and most of our corpses to get supplies. We're not going to need these items, so we might as well get something valuable for them. And selling this stuff allows us to purchase the squad size 1 upgrade and plated armor, and we can even get arc blades too by purchasing alloys with intel. So things are looking pretty good. However, this is XCOM, so of course the very next mission after we get our squad size upgrade, we have the surgical sitrep. That means a maximum of 3 soldiers on the mission. So yeah, that squad size upgrade is useless, at least for this next mission. And the dark event we're trying to counter is really bad. Advent soldiers will have a chance of reanimating as zombies. Now we can barely win missions as it is right now, so if that dark event triggers, we'll have no chance. And speaking of no chance, we're obviously not going to beat this mission with 3 soldiers. So I decide to be a little bit heartless, and we're going to send 3 disposable soldiers. The plan is to complete the objective at all costs and not worry too much about what happens to these brave men. Ideally, I'm hoping the specialist can get line of sight on the device that we need to hack from a distance. That way we can hack it remotely and then evac out. But things don't go that way. This device is in the back of a building. Getting line of sight on it is quite difficult, so we're going to have to get in
close range.
And describing the skirmisher as disposable may seem a bit weird, but he can only attack once every 5 turns. And even then he can only attack against humanoid targets, so he's pretty useless, at least until he levels up more, and of course because he's so useless, that means leveling him up is extremely difficult. Plus having a grappling hook might give him some extra mobility to be able to get in to hack the objective more quickly. So we're still pretty far away from the hacking device when our concealment gets blown. I end up just charging in with all 3 troops. I'm hoping one of them will live long enough to hack the objective, and Duke actually does manage to hack it, and Viperbait even evacs out. The other 2 aren't so lucky, of course. Now this was a weird mission where stopping the dark event was more important than keeping our troopers alive. That doesn't happen too often in this game, and from that perspective the mission was a success. But of course our barracks is now 2 soldiers lighter. I try building some special ammo here. AP rounds on our gunslingers could be really useful, but I can't because we don't have any Elerium cores. We are in May of the campaign and we don't have a single Elerium core to our name. This is not a good sign. On the next supply raid, we engage a shield bearer and captain on the 2nd story of a building. We take out the shield bearer mainly because that's the target we hit with Overwatch, so it's lost some health and it's going to be easier to finish off than the captain. And I'm not too worried about the captain as I've clustered a couple of soldiers together and I'm expecting it to throw a flashbang. We'll then be able to get it on the next turn. Except I made a mistake. It's actually the field commanders who carry flashbangs. Regular captains like this guy carry frag grenades. So we get blown up and sent to the ground below, taking fall damage, and of course the explosion draws in a group of Lost. So then they get to attack us before we can do anything, and here our boy Dr. Bob actually falls. So I decide we should just evac here. If we can tag even a single crate and transport it out, the mission will still count as a victory. So while we hold our ground for a turn, we'll just take this 98% shot with Pinky, and miss. Sweet. So the Lost can spawn in and attack us before we have a chance to do literally anything, but we can't make a 98% shot. I see how it is. Now we do blow up the captain on the way out though, so that's something. And we do get our one crate, so the mission technically isn't a loss. I then begin training Bobette as a sharpshooter so she can continue Bob's legacy. I did have other plans for her, but they're out the window now. I want to start researching psionics at this point because Advent are quickly leaving us behind on the tactical layer. We need 5 Elerium crystals to start the research, and we have 4 Elerium crystals. If we had been able to get a second crate out on that supply raid, we might have enough. And we can't even buy more from the black market since we have barely any intel. Then it's a council mission and we have 3 Advent soldiers in the first pod, a captain, stun lancer and shield bearer. It takes us 3 turns to deal with these guys. Just simple Advent soldiers are proving this much of a challenge. And the only reason we didn't lose anyone is because Leo got a lucky stun on the captain with his sword, so it couldn't do anything for one of those turns. Oh yeah, and did I mention the hunter has appeared again? We hit him with our last grenade and it does do good damage, but it doesn't destroy his cover. So we have to move to flank with the gunslingers, and that leaves them flanked as well. So what I decide to do is cluster 2 rangers together. I'm hoping to bait the hunter's stun grenade. The rangers can't do anything anyway since the hunter has melee immunity. This way they're at least being bait, leaving the rest of the team to attack on the next turn. And the plan actually works. The hunter does take the bait. Now all we need to do to finish this guy off is make a 95% shot with Christmas. And everybody, what do you think happens when we take this 95% shot? Do you think we hit the hunter and beat him? Or do you think we miss and get totally screwed over? Yep, that's XCOM, baby. And I was so angry here that I moved Babette to a spot where she doesn't have line of sight. I don't think she could have actually gotten line of sight on the hunter without yellow dashing, so it probably didn't matter, but I wasn't very thorough in checking. I was really annoyed here. I was not playing at my best. And so that's it. We only have 2 soldiers who can attack this guy, so he's going to get another turn. Now I can at least use Volpez to revive the rangers, and they're able to do some damage to the priest the hunter spawned in. So then on the next turn, our hopes hang on Christmas making a 59% shot. Well, if he couldn't make a 95, you know how this one is going to go. So the hunter gets another turn, and this time he shoots Volpez, causing bleed out on her. She's close enough to the evac zone that she should be fine, but we still need to deal with this hunter. The rangers have moved too far out, having to deal with the priest, so they're still a ways away from the evac zone. So we line up this 83% shot with Christmas, and he connects. Finally, the 3rd time's the charm, I guess. And Bobette is then able to finish the big guy off. We're then able to evac out, and very surprisingly to me, we didn't lose any troops. Awesome. And what's even better is that this mission has given us intel, so now we can stop by the black market, pick up some Elerium crystals, and get to work on psionics. If we can survive long enough to get a couple of high-level psi troopers, this run is going to become much easier. These guys use their psi amps as their secondary weapons, so all of their psi abilities will be at our disposal. And full disclosure here, I did save scum on this next mission. Cloud moves onto this tile that appears to be safe, but of course our concealment gets blown. We're still batting 100% for having bad concealment blows on this run. Every single time. To give context, I had spotted these sectoids earlier on. I thought we had lost line of sight on the one at the back, so we'd be safe moving onto the tile, but it turns out it was actually the one at the front that we couldn't see. Now, losing concealment on a tile that appears to be safe is possible, and it did happen on my last run with the Spectre that revealed us when it shouldn't have. And when this happened, I was still salty about losing Bob and having that 95% shot miss. So I reloaded without really examining the situation closely enough. So yeah, I guess this run is technically invalid, but in my defense, I did think it was a glitch at the time of reloading. It was only after I realized what had actually happened. But whatever, you can't change the past, let's just move on. So Christmas is quickly back to his old tricks, missing an 82% shot. However, he does later redeem himself by landing a huge 6 damage crit on the field commander. This allows Pinky to finish it off. So we do win the mission, but it was really tough. And the thing about this run is that every single mission is really tough. There's none that are a cakewalk. It's just one relentless slog after the next. And in these videos, I normally like to focus on missions that are either challenging or where something interesting happens. But if I did that on this video, it would be longer than YouTube upload limits allow. I mean, look how far we are into the video. I'm on page 9 of my script, and we've still made 0 story progress. I'm too scared to even use the Skulljack, since even a basic codex is going to be a huge challenge for our troops. This run is brutal. But there is some good news. That mission gave us a specialist as a reward. Now, specialists can't attack at all at squaddy level, so leveling them up is really hard. But beyond that, they do get some decent abilities. Combat and Haywire protocols could be good, not to mention being able to use medikits. They're the only way that we can heal on missions. And so here, I actually start building the training center so that we can give this guy some extra abilities. That way he can both heal and attack. We have a retaliation mission next, and berserkers have spawned in on this one. So we'll just be leaving now, I think. Thanks to Covert Ops, we've leveled up our Reaper to Captain. I want to get her to Major so she gets a second Claymore. She still won't be very helpful, but it's better than nothing. Being able to attack twice in a mission is better than being able to attack only once. But the real bonus here is that being a Captain means that we can get squad size 2. And we've also finished the Scilab by now, and we can start training up some brainy boys. Then we have a Resistance mission. If we can make it out alive, we'll get 2 extra soldiers, 1 sharpshooter and 1 ranger. That should be really useful. Of course, the caveat being making it out alive. My plan is to stay concealed and let Advent and the Lost fight it out, and that does happen for a while. Quite a while, in fact. This mission took about an hour to complete. And these mutons spend the majority of that time just running around in circles like this. There is some weird behaviour that Advent can display when the pods are active but you're still concealed. Sometimes all the pods on the map will group together, and that's what I was hoping for here. If they do that, we can then lay down a claymore and a grenade and possibly wipe out the whole map in one attack. Now, it's a great idea in theory, but it's just not happening in practice. The mutons just do not want to join up with the other pods. And it's actually quite an interesting insight into how the AI works. As soon as the last of the Lost go down, the mutons immediately stop running around in circles and instantly make a beeline for our location. It's like they know exactly where we are, even though we're still concealed. And another really brutal battle takes place where even the new recruit who hasn't been activated yet still manages to take damage. Advent will never target these guys, but he got caught in a Blazing Pinions attack on the Lost. Now, we eventually do all make it out alive, even the VIP and the extra soldiers, so that's really good. And then look at this. I'm actually taking the resistance order that makes new recruits cheaper. I never take this order. That's how low on supplies we are and how quickly we're burning through soldiers. And it's not just fatalities, it's also regular injuries that mean we can't send those units into battle. And I know I said we could sell lots of stuff at the black market for supplies, but I've sold pretty much everything we can already, and we're still running low on funds. So saving 10 supplies on a recruit may not seem like much, but when you're having to buy a large amount of recruits, those supplies are going to stack up. We have an ambush mission next, and I actually get a first in all my time playing XCOM. We actually lose a unit. Now, this trooper has Viper Bait pinned down with an Overwatch. We've already lost some health, and I'm afraid the Overwatch could one-shot us if we get unlucky with the damage roll. And given how this run has gone so far, we're probably going to get unlucky with the damage roll. So I decided to use the Ripjack to pull the trooper in and attack it, removing the Overwatch. I was hoping I'd then be able to grapple onto this structure here and keep running to put some distance between us and the trooper, but it turns out I cannot grapple to that location. I really should have checked that before I launched the attack. So instead we're forced to just run along the ground, and that leads us right into a whole bunch of lost and even more advent soldiers. And so, unfortunately, it's over for Viperbait, and this should be another good indication of just how tough this run is. I've played this game for over 1,000 hours and have never lost a single soldier on an ambush mission, at least not that I can remember. But here, it's finally happened. Now fortunately, our Ranger Kindness can still evac out. She has the concealment ability, so she was able to pretty much just run past everything for the whole mission. And literally right after this, we can now do a covert op to gain the resistance order to avoid ambush missions for the rest of the campaign. Yes, please. And now is time for what may be the craziest mission I've ever done in this game. I'm wanting to use a Skulljack on a captain by this point. Well, want isn't the right word, but the avatar progress is becoming a real pain. As in, during this mission, the progress is full and the doom clock is currently counting down. Now we do have a Sabotage covert op that will reduce it in a couple of days, so I'm not too worried, but we do need to get a move on with the story progress. Unfortunately, Andromedons are deploying now, and one of them is laying into the device that we have to protect. And there's no way we're going to be able to Skulljack this captain without activating the Andromedon at the same time. But what we can do is lob a claymore and a grenade from beyond the Andromedon's line of sight. And even better, the purifier that was with the captain actually blows up too, and the whole pod is wiped out in a single blast. So we're not going to be able to Skulljack that captain, but this should make dealing with the Andromedon that much easier, and winning this mission is more important. However, with our concealment blown, the Hunter then appears yet again. He is relentless in this run. Now the Andromedon is surrounded by two Spectres, so not an easy group to deal with, and the device is on really low health. Now the Dark Event, if it triggers, is going to be very bad. It removes the Chosen's weaknesses. So I decide to move in with Leo and activate the third pod. It's a horrible idea, but I don't see any other way of ending the Andromedon this turn. I run Task Manager in to chop down one of the Spectres. I was planning to use Implacable to then move next to the Trooper, hoping we could Bladestorm it on the enemy turn. But Implacable doesn't proc. Now I wasn't sure why at first, but it's because I used the Axe's throw attack to finish the Andromedon earlier in the turn. That caused Task Manager's Implacable to activate then, so we obviously can't use it now. And yeah, in related news, we are using the Axe this run. I probably should have mentioned that sooner. So Task Manager does take some damage, but I did bring the Specialist on this one, so he's able to restore some of the lost HP. And we are able to finish off the remaining enemies on our next turn, but we've used all our claymores and grenades. And because the Hunter is immune to melee, that means we only have one soldier left who can attack him. And who is that one soldier, I hear you ask? Oh yeah, this should be interesting. And I did consider evacing here, but I really don't think we can afford to. This Dark Event will be catastrophic if it activates. It'll be like fighting the Hunter without explosives every single time he shows up, which seems to be quite a lot. So we have to win here, or we at least have to try. So not only is our only way to attack with a pistol that does 4 to 5 damage, but the Hunter heals 3 HP every turn. So this is going to be tough. Now we do have a couple of things working in our favour. Firstly, Christmas has Talon rounds. I still haven't rolled AP rounds from the Proving Ground, but Talon rounds are pretty decent too. And he does have Lightning Hands and Quick Draw. So if he doesn't move, he can potentially shoot up to 3 times in one turn, with each shot having an increased chance of getting a crit. Now, of course, the Hunter has his grappling hook and he's very mobile, so we're always going to have to be moving. But if we can get lucky with the crits, we may have a chance. It's a long shot, but it's the best that we can do. The basic strat is to use the rangers and the grenadier as bait, tanking hits. The specialist can then use medical protocol to heal the damage as necessary and keep our troops alive. And we just need to stay in this fight long enough for Christmas, oh goodness, to do what he needs to do. And it takes forever, but eventually Christmas does land the final blow on the hunter. Well, not the final blow because he will be back, but you get my drift. Yeah, sorry about that one, I had to. But Christmas has taken down the hunter single-handedly. So I'm going to stop talking smack about this man. He did really well in this one, and he has redeemed himself in my eyes. With another council drop, it's time to get rid of our cheap recruits and bring in the no ambushes order. If I was smart, I would have bought a whole bunch of recruits just before the drop, but I guess I'm not. Chrysalids are on the next Retaliation mission, and I know what you're probably thinking, because I was thinking the same thing. There's no way we can deal with Chrysalids, right? Well, we may be able to. See, by this stage, our two Psi operatives have gotten to a reasonably high level, so with them on the team, things may go better than usual. In fact, I'm feeling so confident I even bring the Skulljack to use on a captain. I mean, it can't go any worse than the last mission, right? Well, Hyundai, our Psyop, starts with a Void Rift on a pod of Chrysalids, and we actually mind control one of the three. Now that is amazingly good luck. However, then it's time for Mountain Man to have his turn, and the RNG gods don't favour him nearly as much. He misses a 70% on the Stun Lancer, he takes another shot at it and gets a dodge, then we go for Face Off. The Chrysalids are about 85% chance to hit each. Well, one of them misses, the other is a dodge, the Lancer is once again a dodge, and the Captain is a miss. So out of 5 total shots at 70% chance to hit or above, I'm not sure what the percentage was on the Captain, but of those 5, we didn't properly connect with a single one. I was favouring Mountain Man since he's picked up Untouchable as a hidden ability, but after this, I'm thinking he's getting relegated to the B team. Or maybe the Z team, we'll just have to see. Now it's Bobette's turn, and she misses an 86% on the Lancer. This thing is unkillable. Now I could have used Lightning Hands, but we've already burnt through Mountain Man's Lightning Hands, plus the Thrown Axe this turn. I'm wanting to keep something in reserve for the next pod. But there is something that we've got that the Lancer is not able to dodge. Man, that guy was annoying. The Captain runs away, so we send our new pet lizard to chase him, and another Chrysalid ambushes him and eliminates our newest recruit. Now, we were going to lose the mind control sooner or later anyway, so I'm not too worried about this, and it means none of our soldiers have been caught in the Chrysalid's ambush. As we chase the Captain, a Faceless shows up to slow us down, and once we're done with it, the Captain actually returns with a pod of new friends. It's like in those TV shows when a kid gets bullied and then runs away only to show up with his older brother later on. We do land the Skulljack and the Codex appears. Now I'm happy to leave it for one turn since the psionic bomb isn't much of a threat to us on this run. I mean, this thing can jam our weapons all day, it's not going to affect us. We can't use them anyway. However, I do end up damaging the Codex by blowing it up when I set off this gas tank. Now it was mainly to get the other bad guys who had set up within the blast radius, and it did result in a few civilian losses, but after the exquisite timing run, my care factor about that is around about 0. As long as we keep enough civilians alive to win the mission, that's good enough for me. We're not able to take out the second Captain, but we place Task Manager right next to him and he goes down straight away to a Blade Storm on his turn, and surely enough, then the Codex goes for a psionic bomb. It's made a couple of clones though since we've damaged it. One is in stasis and the other misses with its attack, so no worries there. We then clean up the 3 Codex Stooges. That brings out the last Chrysalid and Faceless, and they go down pretty easily too. So ladies and gentlemen, with that victory, I have some excellent news. we've now officially started to progress the story. It's only taken us until July 30th. However, our success is short-lived, as on the very next mission a sectopod has been deployed. And that may sound bad, and it is, but the truth is we don't even make it to the sectopod. We get overrun with enemies, including a wave of reinforcements, and too much time has passed and we've failed the objective anyway, so it's time to evac out. And the biggest issue here was that after the Retaliation mission, Highlander was too tired to deploy on this one. So we're back to using mostly regular soldiers. We do have Killzone, who is our other psyop, but he hasn't learned some of the stronger abilities yet. And without the power bump from those abilities, plus having only half the number of psyops on the mission, we're straight back to being outclassed on the tactical layer. Now, failure here means the signal jamming dark event triggers, so all our scanning times have just doubled. Now, given how full the avatar progress is, this could be really bad. It's gonna make reaching new regions to complete story missions more difficult. We do have some good news though, as we complete a covert op to gain a new skirmisher, and Sleepwalker here is a much higher level than the previous. He's actually got a good amount of Ripjack abilities unlocked. That should make him significantly more helpful on the battlefield. Then we have another supply raid, and there's a sectopod on this one too. Now I'm really keen to win here since we are short on supplies, but even more importantly, we desperately need some mech wreckages. We haven't got a single one yet in the whole campaign. That means we haven't been able to research blue screen rounds. So we're looking at sectopods with secondary weapons only, not even blue screen rounds in our pistols. So I load up the two Psi operatives, as winning this one is pretty crucial. And once again, it's a long drawn out battle. And there's a pretty cool moment where 3 heavy mechs all go on Overwatch when we blow concealment. Now Christmas, with lightning hands, is able to remove Overwatch from all 3 of them by himself. Very nice. And we have been able to place AP rounds on Mountain Man by this point. He can use face-off on the mechs, and out of the 3 90% shots that he takes, he lands 1 of them. I'm starting to think this guy is secretly working for Advent. So, due to Mountain Man's horrible performance, that forces me to send Kindness out to slash one of the mechs. In doing so, she activates another pod. Now that's a total of 3 active pods. Hyundai hits stasis on the last mech, and I try for a 70% mind control on one of the codexes. It'll probably fail, but if it works, it's gonna be a real game changer. And we do it. Hyundai is showing Mountain Man how it's meant to be done. Advent still have a lot of enemies left, but the counterattack honestly isn't too bad. Task Manager gets shadowbound, but that's about it. We don't take any actual damage. Now I did have to reload this turn. Without thinking, I used our mind-controlled codex to attack with its rifle. The no primary weapons rule applies to mind-controlled units too, so that's not allowed. When I do reload, I use its psionic bomb to remove Overwatch from one of the enemy codexes instead. I'm not sure what it uses to deliver the psionic bomb. The animation looks like its hands, but maybe it uses its big psionic brain. I don't know, but whatever it is, I'm gonna say that it's the codex's secondary weapon, and is therefore allowed. The battle lasts a few more turns, and we actually end up losing our codex friend. I really wanted to keep him as bait for the sectopod, but it's not to be. And Hyundai has taken some damage too, which is not good. Now he does have sustain, so he's not in too much danger just yet, but having our best soldier out of action with injury isn't going to be great for future missions. But I guess we shouldn't worry about that now. We've got a sectopod to get through before we even have any future missions. It takes ages to activate the sectopod pod. Sectopod pod. Try saying that one 10 times fast. Now, I've put Kindness into concealment so she has line of sight, and I'm just waiting for the pod to patrol into us so that we can activate on their turn. We can only overwatch with 2 guys, but every point of damage may end up counting in this exchange. So once we do activate, the heavy mech enters Overwatch. The first step is to remove that, so I send Task Manager out since he has Shadow Step, and he misses a 98% slash. Why? Just why? So it's up to Highlander to once again save the day. He can place the sectopod in stasis and then hit the heavy mech with a null lance. That attack is not going to miss. But Mountain Man, he doesn't want Task Manager stealing his thunder, and he then misses an 87% shot on the mech. And what can I even say at this point? I mean, I certainly shouldn't be surprised. So we send Kindness in to make a 99% slash, and she does it. Awesome, the heavy mech is finally gone. We're able to take down the regular mech without too much difficulty, and the sectopod can't do anything on its turn due to stasis. So then on our next turn, we can focus fire on it. And between our psyops and our AP rounds, we've got quite a few attacks that ignore armor, so we can do big damage on this thing. However, it does hang on with a single point of HP, because of course it does. I could send one of the rangers in to finish it, but they'd get caught in the explosion when it died. So instead I just use the other psyop to stasis again, and then we can just finish the big unit on our next turn. And with that, we now have plenty of mechs for Tigan to cut up. That means blue screen rounds are on their way. So a Guerrilla Op is next, and we're going to be without psyops on this one. They both need rest after the supply raid. There's a pod in front of the device we need to hack, plus 2 turrets. Now I don't see any way our squad of non-psyops can deal with this threat, so I come up with a different plan. And that plan is to not have to deal with them. I send our Reaper over the train to sneak up on the objective from the other side. This way we should be able to hack it and then evac out without having to engage any of the enemies. Now I think everyone should be able to make the one evac spot from their current positions, so I hack the device, and then I realise I've made a very big mistake. I haven't accounted for the Reaper's movement bonus while concealed, so now that she's hacked the objective and been revealed, she can't move nearly as far. Now I think we should be okay. It looks like there's a single square she can make it to while still leaving the evac close enough for all the other troops as well. So I place the evac spot down, and yeah, the one square our Reaper can make it to cannot be evac'd from because of this stupid light post. So it looks like we're going to have to engage for at least one turn. And even when we destroy the light post with a grenade, we still cannot evac out of those tiles. So that doesn't make any sense, but okay. Here comes the Advent attack. Now we do survive, thankfully, so let's finally leave this stank hole. Okay, or not. Seems we're not going anywhere just yet. And I spend the next 3 turns or so trying to evac out while being shot at and having the hunter constantly dazing our soldiers. Now eventually we do get there and everyone makes it out alive. This was more annoying than anything else. Every time it seemed like we were home free, another obstacle was thrown in the way to slow us down. But we did stop the dark event and all our soldiers survive, so I guess that's the main thing. We have racked up a few injuries though. The avatar progress has filled again, and the only way to reduce it seems to be the Blacksite, so it's time to stop putting it off, and I'm making sure to bring Killzone and Hyundai on this one. The first pod is a priest and shield bearer. It's only when I'm halfway through murdering them that I realise I could have easily mind controlled both these guys and added some powerful units to the squad, but no point now that most of their health is gone. The second pod has an Andromedon, but we get another lucky mind control with Void Rift, so we can easily deal with the sectoids in the pod and then turn our attention to the Andromedon when we're ready. As we push forward, I actually use a grenade to get rid of this turret, and that should tell you how confident I'm feeling. The fact I'm burning through a limited use item like a grenade on something as trivial as a turret means that we've come a long way since the start of this run. And when we do finally run into the hunter, Well, we've got a bit of a surprise in store for him. It's on like Donkey Kong, y'all.
A deadly trap.
That makes 1. That makes 2. And this will make a trifecta, I do believe.
Fire in the hole!
Hunters on the menu today. Boom! See ya. My oh my, how the tables have turned, huh? We also mind control one of the priests he summoned in, not because we need another soldier, but just because it's easier than having to deal with it going into stasis and then getting to attack on its turn. Soon it's a council mission and the warlock arrives on this one. We finally reached his territory. Yeah, I've actually started expanding out. Partly because I'm more confident about winning missions now, and partly because we have to, otherwise we're gonna lose to the Avatar project. And his strengths are truly horrific, let me tell you. He has All-Seeing, Soul Stealer, Mech Lord, Revenge, and Low Profile. Now the combination of Revenge and Low Profile is always a bad one, but all the other abilities are pretty bad as well. Now there is some good news, he does have Brittle as a weakness, so if we can get in
close range
with our rangers, they should be able to hit him for pretty big damage. Now of course he summons in zombies that blow Leo's concealment. I was kind of expecting this, and it's not really a bad thing, as the concealment being lost causes the pod that he has line of sight on to activate. Now this means they're activating on their turn, and we'll have a full turn to deal with them. However, what is a problem is that our sharpshooters, for whatever reason, simply do not activate their Overwatch against the zombies. I have no idea why this happened. At first I thought maybe I made them hunker down instead of Overwatch, but watching the footage back while writing this script, no, they were definitely on Overwatch. They just didn't shoot. Every time I think this run cannot get more garbage, it manages to outdo itself and reach a whole new level of trash. Now it's not easy, but we do eliminate all the enemies. The final zombie was a close call. It comes down to having to hit a null lance on a tile that we don't even have line of sight on anymore because all our troops have moved away from it. But I knew where the zombie was from earlier. Well, actually, that's not true. I didn't know. I had forgotten what exact tile the zombie was on, but I made an educated guess and I got it right. Also, we added a captain to the ranks on this turn. Now, he can't attack anyone because he's only got a primary weapon, but he's the closest thing we're going to get to a mimic beacon, so I'm going to take it. We push forward and have 2 pods activate, plus more zombies spawn on top of us. I think it was 8 or 9 enemies total that we had activate all at once. And the worst part about this is that we're trying to cross this bridge when it happens. So this has created a bottleneck and the spectral zombies have cut us off from accessing the other side of the bridge, at least without having to use up a yellow move. So I figure the first thing to do is stasis the Andromedon. There's no way we're going to be able to finish that thing this turn. And now for the rest of the enemies. And I do have an idea here. Remember in that earlier mission when I accidentally procced Implacable from throwing the axe? Well, here I'm going to use that strategy deliberately. I blue move with Kindness, which gives her line of sight on the Stun Lancer. She takes it out by lobbing the axe. This causes Implacable to trigger, and now she can blue move again. And with this extra distance, she can reach the Spectre and land huge damage with a crit. This was amazing. Christmas can then grapple onto the building and start laying waste to the zombies. On the enemy turn, the Warlock hits 3 of our soldiers with a Mind Scorch. Now normally this would be really bad, but having a Psyop with Solace means we can cure all 3 of them immediately just by standing near them. Now we still can't finish the Andromedon even with another turn, but we can get it to second form where it's a lot less dangerous, and the captain is going to serve as the bait here. Now he actually dodges and only takes minimal damage, so that's really good. However, the warlock is then able to mind control kindness. I move Killzone in to remove the mind control, but I move him too close and we get blade stormed. I should have left one tile between the two soldiers. But there you go, Blade Storm will trigger before Solace, so that's something I learned on this run and something for us all to keep in mind when we play this game. Now finally, Leo and Kindness are able to get close enough to the Warlock to attack, and even through his 3 points of armor, they're doing really good damage. So good in fact, he goes into stasis and summons in his Spectrals. And look at his animation as he's summoning these things. This dude's moves are worse than Elaine's from Seinfeld. There any Seinfeld fans watching this? I love that show. But anyway, I'm getting sidetracked. These Spectral Lancers have 12 health, which is a lot. So there's a good chance we're going to take some damage here. And Fush Cookie, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, which I'm probably not, in the chat suggests just evacing out. Now this is a really good idea, but I didn't see his message until my turn was halfway over, so we're not going to be able to evac. And the thing is, I didn't even consider evacing in this scenario. Now at the start of this run, evacing was my go-to solution for just about any situation, but here I went straight into attack mode. And that shows how much my mindset has changed since earlier. I'm feeling much more confident about things now. Anyway, I do have to mention here, there is a Spectre still alive, but it used Vanish and I have no idea where it is. I used Null Lance on one of the Lances, and by complete chance, the Null Lance hits the invisible Spectre as well. This was really cool. And again, it shows that we are getting some good luck in this run as well. 2 of the Lancers do survive, but one of them is in stasis. The other attacks Kindness, but this is exactly what I wanted. Untouchable protects her and she takes no damage. We can then get rid of the Lancers on the next turn, and then we can focus on the Warlock and do the same thing to him. This was another drawn out battle. It took a really long time and we did take a few hits, but once again, everyone makes it out in one piece. And that seems to be happening more and more as the missions progress. And I even finish off the captain just so we can get some extra XP. I'm not sure we even have a single colonel yet, excluding the PsyOps maybe. So XP is definitely something that we need. Sorry Captain Bro, but it's over for you. After the mission, I purchase a heap of new recruits here. I'm hoping at least one of them will have a very high compatibility with one of our high level sharpshooters. But literally none of them do. I bought about half a dozen soldiers too. No love for the new guys here, I guess. Then the next guerrilla op I do decide to skip. There's going to be gatekeepers and most of our high level soldiers are tired or injured. We do have some powerful troops, just not enough of them. So we do have to pick and choose our battles in that regard. Now for the next Retaliation mission, we're good to go though. By this time we have a third decent PsyOp in Lucifer, and that's a really weird sentence to say out loud, and we also once again bring along the Skulljack. This time we want to use it on a Codex. We've also finally got some blue screen rounds, which is going to be really good, plus I've upgraded the Specialist's Gremlin to Mark III. We skipped right over Mark II. Now we only have one Specialist, so it might not seem like the greatest investment, but it will make the 2 attacks he can do each mission inflict 6 damage instead of 2. That's a really nice damage boost. Plus it'll give us an extra use of scanning protocol, which should come in really handy when we eventually encounter the assassin. Now the Codex is in the first pod, so that's convenient for us. We can hopefully deal with the Avatar early, and then not have to worry about it for the rest of the mission, and just play things normally. Now a Chrysalid and a Viper are also active, so we want to deal with those first. I'm happy to leave the Codex since it should just go for a psionic bomb, not a big deal on this run. But interestingly, the Codex doesn't go for a psionic bomb. Instead it just shoots at a civvy, and that doesn't happen too often. And there is a bigger problem too for the civilians. As it turns out, a second Chrysalid was also active, or maybe it triggered from being burrowed underground, I'm not sure, But either way, it's turned one of the resistance ladies into a cocoon. So we're going to have to deal with that ASAP. We mind controlled the chrysalid, mainly just for mimic beacon purposes. We then lay waste into the cocoon, but it does survive. These things have a huge health pool. Now the lid that spawns from the cocoon instantly goes down to a blade storm, so there's no worries there. But leaving the codex for another turn means that it gets to shoot at another civilian. This thing does not want to psionic bomb us. It is being a real pain. So let's take it out. Now, of course, doing this brings in the avatar. I was ready to use stasis to shut it down if we needed to, but we can actually take it out in one turn, so there's no need for the stasis. That went really well. We then proceed with the mission, and something really weird happens. We go for a mind control on the Berserker. This causes some resistance operatives to start running around like headless chickens, and Lucifer appears to fire his gun. The game, however, tells us that the mind control has failed. Now, I wasn't sure what happened here, and I was going to reload, but Killzone in the chat, and yes, the Killzone character is his character, tells me he's had this happen before. Apparently, when an animation is interrupted, the game defaults to playing the gun shooting animation. And those resistance operatives moving around on our turn has apparently caused the mind control animation to be interrupted. Now, we weren't really sure why the resistance guys were getting free moves. One of them did get lit on fire on the previous turn, so I'm guessing that's causing some weird behaviour. But the long story short is that while it may look like Lucifer fired his primary weapon, he didn't. And we can confirm this by checking his ammo. His clip is still full, meaning that his rifle hasn't been fired. So that's the first takeaway. The second takeaway is that Lucifer has just failed a 93% mind control. I think we're going to have to put him on Mountain Man's team after this one. Since we still have to deal with the Berserker now, I send Kindness out to melee. I'm hoping she can finish it with a Blade Storm on the enemy turn, but that's not what happens. No, instead she misses and then gets Shadowbound. I blame Lucifer for this. However, in a truly shocking twist, the Resistance operatives are actually really helpful. They take the Spectre out on their turn, and Kindness is back by the time our turn begins. I wasn't expecting that. So we mop up the rest of the bad guys, and we win this one pretty easily. Having more Psi operatives is really helping us out on the tactical layer. And with this mission in the bag, Kindness has finally reached Colonel level. I think she's the first. That means we now have access to the Reaper ability. Now, I think this is the only multi-target attack we have access to apart from face-off, so this should be really helpful moving forward. On this next mission, I've mind-controlled a priest, and I actually did shoot with its rifle twice. I just wasn't thinking. Now, he did miss both times, so I didn't bother reloading. For once, my terrible RNG is actually proving useful. And this mission was our first encounter with a Gatekeeper, but between Hyundai and the Priest, we have two uses of stasis, so we can just inflict as much damage as possible on the Gatekeeper, and then we can put it into stasis so that it can't attack us. And it goes down without too much trouble. Now we just have to secure a second Gatekeeper, and we'll be able to build level 3 Psi-Amps. That should be very helpful. And we finally have plasma grenades, plus we've picked up a Colonel level Grenadier as a scanning reward. Our other Grenadiers are nowhere close to being Colonel. So the increased damage, both of the upgraded grenades, plus the volatile mix ability, really causes some chaos for Advent. Not to mention being able to carry 3 grenades is really nice as well. Soon we get level 3 swords as well, so our rangers can enjoy some increased damage output too. And then this next mission, this one is nuts. We literally spawn in front of a turret and it activates straight away. Now with Bobette having AP rounds and a Wraith suit, it's not a big deal. But then an Andromedon and Viper move up on us. Now we do have 2 Psi Troopers, so we can mind control both of them. Welcome to the team, as it were. However, after that, 4 Advent soldiers, a heavy mech, and a sectopod are then ready to fight. Now here I did lob an acid grenade at the sectopod, but then I realised that it looks like the blob of acid actually comes from the Andromedon's gun. This would mean that it is technically using its primary weapon, so I reloaded. I'm gonna say the Andromedon is only allowed to punch from now on. That's its secondary weapon, according to me at least. And as for the Viper, I'm counting its rifle as its primary weapon and its mouth as its secondary. So all its abilities like tongue pull and acid spit we are allowed to use. The Lost World Dark event is active too, so a bunch of zombies show up in addition to everything else going on. Now the heavy mech does fall back, but it quickly returns with a Spectre and 2 Mutons. And as you might expect by the amount of enemies that we're facing, this mission takes absolutely ages. We're just grinding our way through the bad guys using our Viper and Andromedon as meat shields as we go. Now eventually everyone is able to evac, but we did take a few hits, and that's even with 2 psionic soldiers on the mission. The difficulty seems to be increasing despite our soldiers becoming more powerful. This isn't good. And speaking of not good, the Hunter has finally reached maximum power and can launch an attack on the Avenger. Now we're in November in game time, so it's taken him quite a while to reach this point. That resistance order we snagged at the beginning of the campaign has bought us quite a bit of time. However, it's not enough time. I'm still not feeling ready for a Stronghold assault, but time waits for no man it seems. We have to go in and hopefully beat the Hunter, whether we like it or not. So the team consists of 3 sharpshooters and 3 psi operatives. Each psi operative is bonded with one of the sharpshooters. I really wanted all 3 bonds to be at maximum level before we hit any of the chosen bases, but it doesn't seem like that's going to happen. And this is the reason why I said earlier in the video that I was going to hold off on promoting Bobette while Dr. Bob was still alive. Man, that seems like a long time ago. I can barely remember it. But anyway, basically having bonds between psyops and sharpshooters is the key to winning these Stronghold assaults. I was planning on having Bobette become a psi operative, but that didn't happen when we lost Dr. Bob. So I'll explain more about my strategy as we progress. Hopefully it works out. I think that it will. Now the first section of the mission isn't a problem. We can lay waste to whatever enemy pods we encounter with our psi operatives pretty easily, and because there's no time limit, once a pod is defeated, we can just sit back and wait for our abilities to come off cooldown. Then once they have, we can push forward and repeat the process. So I won't spend a lot of time on this part. It's really quite easy, nothing gave us too much of a challenge. No, the real problem is the final chamber, and more specifically the sarcophagus itself. But we'll get to that in a bit. Right now we have a priest and purifier to deal with. The priest we mind control, mainly because it has the stasis ability. This will mean with our 3 psi operatives, we can use stasis 4 times in a turn if we need to. That's huge. Now I'm expecting we're going to be dealing with quite a few reinforcements, so having the priest should be really helpful. And the purifier we just destroy. I did consider mind controlling him and then using fuse to blow up his grenade right on top of the Hunter, but the truth is that would only give us a single attack, and there may be more useful enemies to mind control amongst the reinforcements, so I didn't think using a dominate now was really worth it. And here, I accidentally move Bobette in too far, and we activate the Hunter before I'm ready. Now the strat here is to hit him with as many Null Lancers or other psi abilities as we can to inflict big damage. He does have the Planewalker ability by now. I'm not sure if I mentioned that earlier or not, so he's teleporting around the room, and that's always really annoying. Now he does survive and he summons in some priests, but this is actually okay as it just means more uses of stasis for us. We can mind control these guys and bring them to our side. The Hunter also lobs a stun grenade, but thanks to Solace it doesn't affect any of our troops, so he's pretty much spent his entire turn helping us out. It's very nice of him. However, I'm not planning to return that kindness. I use face off with Mountain Man, we do big damage, but the hunter survives with 1 HP, because of course he does. This is really obnoxious. So we can finish him off with Killzone, and I decide to stasis the priests. We can mind control them later if I really want to. But with the bad guys dealt with, now let's talk about the sarcophagus, the real challenge of this mission and the reason I've been putting it off for so long. See, sharpshooters, at least as far as I know, are the only unit we have that can inflict damage on the sarcophagus. I guess a Templar could as well, but I don't want to bring any of them. See, the sarcophagus can't be harmed by things like grenades or even psi abilities. We can only shoot at it, and obviously the sharpshooters are the only ones who can shoot, and they're using pistols, so they're not going to be doing all that much damage. So the basic strat is to have our sharpshooters get off as many shots as they possibly can, and the way that we're going to do this is with bonds. The PsyOps can use teamwork to grant our gunslingers extra actions to give them more shots on the sarcophagus. They can also use the Inspire ability for the same result. And you can see here just how many shots Mountain Man is able to make in a single turn. Being able to keep giving actions to the sharpshooters was critical to this mission's success. And we've actually done really big damage to the sarcophagus in just a single turn. And we may be making it look easy here, but without those extra actions thanks to the bonds, we would be in real trouble. And here's something weird happens. Only a single reinforcement spawns in. I don't remember ever seeing that before. I guess it has something to do with the number of enemies on the map. Maybe the game goes easy on you if there's multiple hostiles already in the chamber. I'm not sure. But regardless, we take the sarcophagus down, and then the hunter returns. Now he does keep teleporting with each attack, but I gave the whole squad grappling hooks before the mission, so no matter where he warps to, we have someone in prime position to attack him. And we actually finish him off without too much trouble. So the give the sharpshooters as many shots as possible strat seems to have worked quite well. That's one less chosen that we need to worry about. And even better, we can now begin researching the Dark Claw. This is one of the few chosen weapons we can actually use, and it should prove very valuable. Now straight away, we've got a council mission, and all those people we just sent out to the chosen Stronghold are pretty exhausted, so we're going to need a new squad. And even though we just used 3 PsyOps, we still have a 4th in Lucifer who is ready to go. Our barracks has certainly gotten a lot stronger than at the start of the run. Now given this is a council mission, and it's in the warlock's territory, I'm pretty certain he's going to show up here. He's been doing that quite a bit lately. And sure enough, here he is. Now he spawns in 2 heavy mechs, plus there's another pod right next to him. So this seems like a pretty brutal fight that we're going to have on our hands. And rather than talking through this one, I think I'm just going to show you with a good old music montage. What you're about to see is one of my favourite parts of this entire run, so I hope you enjoy it as much as I did. Yeah, Reaper is a pretty great ability to have, especially when combined with the axe. Now the Codex is the only thing that survives, and it just does a psionic bomb, which isn't going to bother us on this particular run. We're finally starting to take the lead in this campaign, and it really has taken a while for us to reach this level. Up next is a Retaliation mission, and there's a Gatekeeper on this one. If we can grab its corpse, we'll be able to build tier 3 Psi-Amps, which will be devastating for Advent, and really good for us. Once again, I've given the squad grappling hooks. I figure being able to move quickly could come in useful here, since losing too many civilians is probably the only real way we can lose this mission. And we're pushing forward for several turns with no enemies in sight, and I'm starting to get a little nervous here. We need to protect those civilians, and if we can't find the bad guys, we obviously can't stop them. So, having grown a little bit impatient, with the last move of our turn, I move just too far forward with Christmas. We activate a heavy mech, priest, and 3 berserkers. I mentioned this was the last move of our turn, right? And I didn't even move that far with him. It was just a couple of steps. But nevertheless, the bad guys are coming for us now, and Leo takes massive damage from the mech. We do a good job fighting off this pod, however, it's during this mission I realise our skirmisher is still using the level 1 ripjack. I think this is the first time I've used a skirmisher in combat since the very first mission, excluding the ambush where we didn't have a choice, of course. So because I haven't been using him, I just forgot about upgrading his gear. But the bigger problem is even before we finish dealing with these enemies, the Gatekeeper pod activates, and we've already used a lot of our abilities like the throwing axe and stasis. I didn't really think this one through enough. And as if that isn't bad enough, I move Milo too far forward and we activate another pod, this one with an Archon. Now Reaper once again comes in handy, but multiple enemies do survive, including the Archon and the Gatekeeper. Plus, both Faceless have spawned on top of us at the same time. During all this, Sleepwalker ends up taking a big hit from the Gatekeeper. Now we have mind-controlled the Berserker, but it's too far away to do anything, and even if it wasn't, I'm counting its fists as its primary weapon, so we can't attack with it anyway. I mean, its fists are its only weapon, so I guess it doesn't even have a secondary. It's just a high HP mimic beacon, really. However, the Great Equalizer does come, and it comes in the form of Christmas with the Dark Claw. He can get off multiple shots, including a face-off, and he obliterates the Gatekeeper. I guess it's good we took out the Hunter and got that pistol when we did. Now I end up falling back with Sleepwalker and Leo. One more attack could easily finish either of them off, which we obviously don't want. That means it's up to the rest of the squad to hold this down. We take out the rest of the enemies without any real issue, and I do have to admit here that I did reload, but it was for absolutely no reason. I'd kind of zoned out while streaming. I do that quite a bit, you can ask my Twitch viewers, and I thought I had attacked with the Berserker, which would require a reload. But the thing is, I never did attack with the Berserker. Now the reload didn't affect the outcome of the battle, it just wasted everyone's time. So not a big deal, just a bit annoying. I need to pay more attention to what I'm doing. Now, have you ever seen this one? The warlock sabotages us, causing our current covert op to take longer to complete. I don't think I've ever encountered this scenario before, and it nearly caused us to miss out on another covert op, which would give us tactical analysis. But we thankfully got in 1 day before the available covert ops reset. That's really close. Tactical analysis is an amazing ability. And once the covert ops do reset, we get another really good one. Breakthrough research giving our beam weapons +1 damage. This is going to be incredible for our sharpshooters. Now during this time, I'm really focusing on maxing out the bonds between our sharpshooters and psi operatives, and this just involves sending the bonded soldiers out on missions together. Once we have 2 of the bonds maxed out and the other one at level 2, we head for the warlock. I think we'll be able to deal with him. And once again, there isn't much to say about the opening section. Our psyops are rocking alien psyamps by this stage, and you can see Lazy Boy takes out 2 of the 3 chrysalids in this pod with a single Void Rift. Also, I should mention, this character is based on my favourite Twitch streamer, Lazy Boy's World. I'll leave a link to his channel in the description. You should consider checking it out. And while I've got nothing to talk about in terms of mission progress, look at this disgusting thing. I think my map mod is spawning a turret on top of an Advent soldier growing thing. Yeah, soldier growing thing, that's its technical name. And it makes me want to throw up every time I have to look at this monstrosity. And now you've had to look at it too, so sorry about that, I guess. Anyway, enough of that, let's head down to the Warlock. The first enemies awaiting us are a Trooper and an Andromedon, and our chance to mind control the Andromedons is actually 100% with our new psyamps. So these guys' psi defense is apparently less than that of Archons. Now I wouldn't have expected that, but I guess it does make sense. Since they're so bulky, the devs gave them a weakness that we can exploit. Now here, I run the mind-controlled Trooper into the Warlock. I was hoping to activate Fuse to detonate his grenade like I was considering doing in the Hunter's base, but apparently we cannot fuse mind-controlled soldiers. That's a real shame. I'm actually disappointed about that. The Warlock is in full cover, which is why I wanted to hit him with the grenade, but Null Lance makes short work of him all the same. His cover isn't going to protect him from that. Now, a question that I was asked a couple of times in this run is, does Fanfire work on the sarcophagus? And honestly, I'm not entirely sure. When you use Fanfire on the sarcophagus, the game seems to only give you 1 damage count while you're shooting it, but judging by the amount of health that it's lost, I'm guessing all 3 shots did actually connect. So I think it works, but I'm not certain. The reinforcements are a chrysalid and a spectre. We wipe out the lid and we stasis the spectre, and it's then time for the Warlock's return. Now he couldn't really do much when he was at full health, and that doesn't change here. And you'll notice that I use teamwork so that Bobette can get the kill. We want to prioritise giving kills to the sharpshooters since they'll benefit from the XP, the Psi operatives will not. And with the Warlock gone, we can hit the Psionic Gate mission. I normally like to wait until we have the Assassin's Katana for this one, but this campaign is taking way too long already. We need to make some progress. And the placement of the chrysalids is pretty bad on this one. They've all burrowed right on top of the gate itself. Now I guess the good news here is that we don't have to worry about remembering where they are. They're all in one place. And then the first pod that we encounter is also chrysalids, so we mind control 2 of them. These things are great to use as mimic beacons since they're immune to chrysalid poison. This means if they do get taken down by another lid, they're not going to form a cocoon and spawn more of their kind that we'll then have to deal with. So the plan seems solid. We're going to hide behind the chrysalids, let them take the hits for us. However, I yellow dash with half my squad, only to then uncover an Andromedon and some Advent soldiers. Now I've brought the specialist on this one so he can heal our troops if we do happen to get poisoned, and his combat protocol is able to one-shot the shield bearer in this pod, so that's really nice. And then we're thankfully able to use stasis on the Andromedon, and thanks to tactical analysis, the Purifier is too far away to do anything. We can then deal with this pod on the next turn and keep pushing forward. And once again, we're trying to prioritise having the lower level soldiers get kills so that they can get the most XP. So I send in our lizard beacon to trigger any burrowed lids, and look at this hot pile of garbage. The enemy completely ignores our chrysalid that triggered it and instead focuses on Hard Viper. I don't think I've ever seen this behaviour before. I did not appreciate this. Now thankfully the other 2 lids that trigger do go for our decoy, and as for that one who doesn't want to follow the rules, well, he who laughs last laughs the loudest. And scanning protocol can be really good for burrowed chrysalids as it forces them to the surface. We can then mop them up before they have a chance to really do anything, and it feels pretty good being able to ambush them for a change. And the Gatekeeper itself is no big deal. We fought multiple of them by this point, so this one isn't much of a challenge. We make contact with the Assassin's territory. Yeah, I've been delaying that one for a while. And we begin hunting her through covert ops straight away. She'll be a bad chosen to deal with on this run due to her high mobility and our limited options for destroying cover, so it's good that we've been able to avoid her for as long as we have. Now, the first mission in her territory is a UFO raid, and between the Warlock Stronghold and the Psionic Gate mission, our barracks is pretty tired, so we're sending some low-level troops on this one. Now, most of them are still decently powerful, but they're not on the level of our A-team. And if you've never had the misfortune of encountering the assassin on a UFO raid, I really envy you. This mission is one of those everything is gonna go wrong situations. So let's get into it. We move with our first unit and immediately lose concealment to some bad pod placement. And because we're on a ridge, getting line of sight on the bad guys below us is gonna be tough. Now we do have tactical analysis, so I decide the best bet is to hang back and force the enemies to come to us. We can place our exposed psyop into stasis to keep him safe, and then we're just trying to stay out of line of sight with everyone else. Hopefully on our next turn we can regroup and then counterattack. Of course, in the meantime, the assassin is here. Her abilities are brutal, shogun, blast shield, watchful, and shadow step. Her weaknesses are groundling and reapers. And also remember, our reaper can only attack her with the claymore, and that's going to do literally nothing since she's immune to explosions. So yeah, not a great chosen for us to deal with. Now thankfully on the enemy turn we don't actually get attacked, but we do get a really bizarre glitch on the next turn. Our psyop has line of sight on multiple enemies and we can target them, but they're all invisible. And it's not until we move another soldier in that the enemy units actually appear on the screen. Also, we've only got 6 turns to fight our way through the 2 active pods and then hack the objective. Oh yeah, and we've totally lost line of sight on the Andromedon. I have no idea where that thing is, but it's out there somewhere and it's ready to destroy us. So the situation is looking a little bleak. Now the Andromedon reveals itself on the next enemy turn, but it thankfully only targets the priest that we've mind controlled, and even better, it misses with its attack. So then I decide to use Holy Warrior with the priest to buff our psyop. Now this can be a cool thing to do, it makes your soldier more powerful, but it is very risky. If you lose that priest, it could take the buffed soldier down with it. So once we've applied Holy Warrior, we want to move that priest as far away from the action as we can. Now we stasis the Andromedon, but a Spectre clones one of our troops, and because we had to fall back out of line of sight, plus I didn't want to cluster any troops together in case we got hit with an acid bomb, we're just not in a good position to hit back. So we are able to take out the Spectre, but the Andromedon not so much. Now we have reduced it to second form, so it hopefully won't be able to do too much damage to us. Now meanwhile, I'm worried about the turn timer, so I push on with our buffed Psyop Skurkrov, and this is a good time for another shout out. Skurkrov compiles all the challenge run suggestions in our Discord, and the guy does an amazing job. I appreciate all the great work he does in keeping us entertained. However, what I don't appreciate is that his character has triggered another pod here, with a heavy mech and another Andromedon. Now we can mind control the Andromedon, so that's really good, but then the mech and the trooper do big damage on Skurkrov. Plus the assassin shows up, and even with his extra HP from Holy Warrior, he runs out of health and sustain triggers. So he is alive, but he's taken a monumental amount of damage. And what's even worse is that going into stasis means that he's lost mind control of the Andromedon. And we get the weird glitch, all the enemies are invisible again. This is going really well. Now I'm pretty sure Skurkrov was trained to maximum level by this point, or at least very close to maximum level. So that's a lot of time we've invested into him. We really don't want to lose this soldier here. And then completely inadvertently we find the assassin. I'm not even going to attempt to deal with her, as there's 4 other active bad guys right now. They need to take priority. And this is actually really bad. So I guess all we can do is begin our counteroffensive, and we'll see how we go. Now, things start off promisingly. Lucifer can hit a void rift through the UFO wall to finish the trooper. We use the specialist Master Chief to heal up Skurkrov as much as we can, and he then uses another void rift and we get back mind control of the Andromedon. This thing just can't decide which side it's on. Now, the mind control will only be temporary because we didn't use Dominate, but that's all that we need to keep it from annihilating our squad, so I'm happy with that. And Task Manager can then slice the heavy mech into pieces. So then on the enemy turn, the Andromedon shell that's been active since the first turn of the mission tries for a punch on Medic. It misses, and we then finish it with Return Fire. Now, I think that's the first time I can remember Return Fire actually being useful. I was hoping the assassin would go for Harbor Wave, but instead she summons some stun lances, and then she just bashes Medic right in the face. And after that, she jumps onto the roof where we have no possible way of reaching her. And that's what makes her so bad on these mission types. Oh, and even better, while she's up on the roof, she's gone into Overwatch as well. So when our Andromedon tries moving, he gets blasted and is reduced to his second form. That means no more mind control for us. There is thankfully some good news, as the assassin being active has paused the turn timer. We use Revival Protocol to remove Medic's daze, and he shows his gratitude by then missing a 91% shot. Now thankfully he's able to hit the second shot, but we needed both of them to connect to finish the Andromedon. Now thankfully Task Manager can finish it with a slash, and then we can use Implacable to keep heading for the objective. But here is where the garbage of this run reaches a whole new level, and this one legitimately annoyed me. The assassin goes for Harbor Wave, and Lucifer, who has Solace, gets dazed. Now Solace is supposed to protect us from all mental effects. He should never ever get dazed. And this is the game simply not working as it's supposed to. And just to recap, the assassin has been hanging out on the roof where we cannot reach her, and now her abilities are ignoring our soldiers' own abilities to totally screw us over. This was just awful. But there's not much we can do other than push on, so we hack the objective, and then several turns pass where we simply can't do anything. As long as the assassin is on the roof of the UFO, we cannot get to her. So it's just a matter of waiting for her to eventually come down to our level and stay there. And once she does, we can take her out quite easily. And this mission honestly sucked. Probably the worst one of the campaign in terms of how unfair it was, and that's saying something because this run has been absurd. But you want to know something even better? Just after we've had a bunch of troops injured from that stupid mission, we have the Avenger defense straight after. And there's honestly not much strategy to this one. I just pick the best soldiers that we have available, and we're just going to push forward to the objective, destroying everything in our path. And despite us having a plethora of decently leveled soldiers, Bradford keeps sending the absolute lowest ranked out as reinforcements. Because of course he does. I mean, what else would you expect at this point? And as we close in on the Disruptor, we've added an Andromedon, a Stun Lancer, and a Priest to our ranks thanks to Mind Control, and we end up using them to destroy the device while the rest of our squad can start heading back to the evac zone. And our new recruits are also good for slowing down the Advent reinforcements, and while it does take a really long time, all of our troops do make it out alive, and honestly, compared to the last mission, this one felt like a gentle stroll in the park. And then before long we have a guerrilla op. It's kind of annoying because this purifier has taken cover on the truck. Now I'm afraid if we take him out, he's going to explode and that will cause the truck to blow up as well. Now the problem is the device that we need to hack is in the back of the truck and it could be destroyed in the explosion. So I opt to stasis him instead, and I think that'll be a safer option. Now we've also got reinforcements incoming. I'm not too worried about them, at least until we activate this sectopod. Now we are able to stasis it, but there's a lot of enemies that are either active right now or that are going to be dropping in on us on the next turn. and we may be able to take them all down, but we'll probably suffer some injuries or even worse. So I decide we're just going to hack the objective and then leave. We'll still stop the dark event, and that's the main thing. On the next supply raid, a similar situation arises. We activate 3 pods at once, and the soldiers that we've taken on this one are not our best. Now thankfully, this is one of those missions where you only have to grab a single loot crate to win. I was only planning on grabbing a couple anyway and then just evacing out, purely to save us on time. We really don't need resources by this stage, we're sitting on a mountain of them already. I'm just wanting to push through the campaign as quick as we can. So we grab 2 crates and bounce on out of there, and the main thing with these missions is that the best soldiers are tired, so we're having to use some of the lower level troops. And a lot of the lower level troops are decently powerful in their own right, but they're just not on the level of our A-listers, and when we can't send out our very best troops, we are still struggling on the tactical layer. And speaking of the A-listers, once they're recuperated, we send them to the assassin's base. Almost a full year has passed in-game time, and the pods are getting pretty nasty here, like this one with 4 Archons as an example. I don't think I've ever seen that before. Now we are able to deal with them, mostly thanks to Void Rift and Face Off, but again, victory is not a sure thing even this late in the game. We do need to be careful here. In the final chamber, an Andromedon and Trooper are waiting for us. Of course I go for the mind control. I didn't bring a specialist on this one, since once again I wanted to prioritise the bonds. We need those sharpshooters and psi operatives. So having some mind-controlled troops that can act as kind of a search party and try and find the assassin when she vanishes should be really helpful for us. So even if the trooper can't attack, we're still going to get value there. Now, as we mind control these guys, I'm afraid that they're too close to the sarcophagus and they're going to activate the assassin. But it doesn't happen, so I guess they were far enough away. That's really good. So given they're far enough away, I move up with Killzone. I figure he should be safe here, and oh no, we're not safe. Looks like only XCOM soldiers can activate the Chosen, not mind-controlled units. So the assassin is now here, and we are completely out of position and not ready to take her on at all this turn. So not the best turn of events for us. And I found this really interesting here. She's actually affected by tactical analysis. Now I think that's the first time I've seen that happen. So she's able to summon in some stun lancers, but she doesn't have enough actions left to attack us. That's really good. And I don't know what to say about this exchange. I guess I'll just ramble over the top of it and you can watch for yourself. We end up taking out the assassin and the sarcophagus in the same turn. Not to mention dealing with the stun lancers too. I mean, Mountain Man was in the perfect position and he could shoot 5 times. And unlike usual, he actually made the majority of those shots. A Null Lance later finished off the assassin, and we then had our 2 other sharpshooters ready to lay waste to the sarcophagus. We did a ridiculous amount of damage with pistols in this turn. I was honestly shocked. So needless to say, when the assassin does return, she's only had a single turn to regenerate HP, she doesn't have a lot of it left. And I was trying to get the kill with Hard Viper since he's still the only one at major rank in this group, but Bobette has other ideas and finishes things herself. She's just too OP, I guess. And just like that, there's no more Chosen to deal with. So the combination of sharpshooters and psi operatives worked really well for dealing with those Chosen bases. And thankfully, we can do a covert op to get Hard Viper his promotion that way, so nothing lost really. Then we have a Retaliation mission, and something pretty cool happens. We win the mission with 0 civilian casualties. That doesn't happen too often. In fact, I can't remember the last time that it happened, and I wasn't even trying for it initially. It was one of those UFO map types, and the civilians were on the roof. Most of the enemies were melee units like berserkers and chrysalids, so for some reason they decided to just stand around below the UFO rather than attacking. And this gave us the time that we needed to take most of them out. It did come down to the wire though. This codex landed a psionic bomb smack bang in the middle of a bunch of civilians. We had to eliminate the rest of the enemies that turn in order to avoid the psionic bomb going off. Thankfully, Task Manager has both Reaper and a grappling hook by this stage, so he cleaned up the final bad guys without too much issue. And now let's move on to the Forge mission. That's the only thing standing between us and completing the game's story research. And it's honestly really easy, as you'd probably expect by this stage in the game. I brought the Specialist mainly to see how his Haywire protocol would go on the sectopod. I've been buffing his hack via covert ops for the majority of the game. So we go in to hack it, and it's still at a measly 38%. But don't worry, once we hit that sectopod with blue screen rounds, that 38% goes all the way up to 40%. Yeah, Haywire protocol really sucks. So we push on and we mostly just destroy everything unlucky enough to get caught in our path. The most interesting thing that happens is the game's insistence to give us action cam every single time a soldier jumps through this particular window. Yeah, we get it, game. They're going through the window. Like, even the mind-controlled shield bearer gets in on the action. I guess this is what team building looks like in the XCOM universe. Anyway, the evac zone spawns in a pretty horrible location, so we actually have to fight the reinforcements. I normally just run past them, but we're too far from the evac location to do that this time. Now, the captain has gone inside the building, and we don't have very good line of sight. I'm thinking we're not going to be able to finish it this turn, so I'll hit an Insanity instead. That'll hopefully either cause mind control or panic, and that'll keep him busy long enough for us to escape. But the captain has other ideas. In his panic, he decides to lob a grenade at us. Now normally this would be bad, but since our psyops have Fortress, they don't actually take any damage. And what's even better, the blast has taken out the wall, giving us much better line of sight. Mountain Man is able to do his thing, and he actually hits, and the captain is gone. So that worked out perfectly, really. And I know this has been a long video, but there's just one more thing that I want to show you before we head into the final missions. We've got this council mission. Bobette is rocking the Dark Claw with blue screen rounds, and just look at how much damage she's going to do to this sectopod with fanfire. 33 to 42 HP. This woman is a monster. And I actually cracked up laughing on stream at how OP she is. So yeah, I'm not expecting we're going to struggle much at the end here. But there is only one way to know for sure. So let's finish this Herculean campaign once and for all. Now we've actually got more AP than we have useful abilities to purchase with them. And it's to the point that I end up taking deep cover on a couple of the ranges. It's better than nothing, I guess, but deep cover is a really bad ability, so it's not much better. With the network tower, we get pretty lucky with the intel bonuses. 2 of them buff our crit chance, so it's going to get an over 50% boost on every attack. That should be very nice. I send Mountain Man, Lazy Boy, and Task Manager. A Sharpshooter, Psyop, and Ranger is a decent combo, I think. Now, some things always stay the same, and we blow concealment on a pod pretty early on. I mind control one of the codexes in the pod, and this triggers a second pod. Then I move in for a slash with Task Manager on one of those enemies, and look at his crit chance here. 88%. I love this. However, when we move in to attack, we activate a third pod. And despite this seemingly bad luck, we wipe out all but 2 of the bad guys and we actually take no damage. Absolutely wild. On the next turn, I've made sure that everyone has Wraith suits so Lazy and Mountain Man can cover good distance to catch up with Task Manager. We're not able to finish the Archon off, but I've placed Task Manager right next to it for the Blade Storm. Unfortunately, he does miss, but we still take no damage once again thanks to Untouchable. Then Mountain Man delivers a massive crit and one-shots a turret with his pistol. Now that is insane right there. And once the Archon is gone, we don't actually encounter any more enemies. I guess the last pod was on the roof or something. Either way, this one was really easy despite our bad luck. We didn't actually end up using the mind-controlled codex at all. So now for the final mission proper. I bring 2 sharpshooters in Bobette and Hard Viper, as well as their bonded Psyops, Hyundai and Killzone. I also bring a Ranger in Kindness, and our one and only Specialist Master Chief. And the Specialist is really here just in case something goes wrong and we need to heal. Now in this first area, we absolutely demolish Advent. We encounter a pod of 6 chrysalids and a gatekeeper. Bobette and Kindness are both concealed. Bobette picked up Phantom as a hidden ability. And I'm also not wanting to attack with the Specialist since he can only attack 3 times total for the whole mission. So we're effectively using only 5 soldiers for combat, and we still annihilate this pod like it's nothing. And the thing that makes this so much easier than the last run is the commander's avatar being able to use his Psyamp. Dimensional Rift is a ridiculously broken ability, and we can scout enemy pods with Bobette and Kindness, and then have the Psy Troopers hit them with either a Void Rift or a Dimensional Rift. So there's honestly not much to say here, it's just a beatdown to the point that I almost feel sorry for Advent. Almost. Now as we head to the end of the first area, I stupidly blow Bobette's concealment. I really wanted to keep her concealed so she could get off a hidden fanfire on the first avatar, but that's not going to happen now. But that's a later problem. For right now, we still make short work of these berserkers, but as soon as we're done with them, a group of stun lancers show up. And here, Dimensional Rift does 11 damage to nothing. I was afraid it'd hit one of our troops, but it didn't. I think it actually did the damage to the berserker's corpse. Really weird. Talk about beating a dead horse. Anyway, against these stun lancers, Hard Viper misses a 90% shot. I deliberately brought him instead of Mountain Man because Mountain's accuracy has been so bad this run. And now we've got Mountain Man one-shotting turrets, and this dude is missing a 90% shot. So that's pretty ironic, I guess. I end up having to stasis one of the lancers because I don't think we're going to be able to finish it this turn. And that's honestly the most challenged that we've been in this mission so far. Like we had to stasis someone to get them next turn. Every other pod we've destroyed in the first turn that we've activated them. And the final pod consists of 2 sectopods and 2 heavy mechs. We unleash with Dimensional Rift and Void Rift. Not to mention Bobette's Dark Claw loaded with blue screen rounds, so these guys go down pretty easily. And now 3 avatars are all that are keeping us from victory. We wait around for a bit to let our abilities come off cooldown. I then kick off our final assault by charging in Kindness. She attacks the avatar, and then she gets to Blade Storm the whole pod, so the first big boss is down to 2 HP already. And the best part is, we don't even end up finishing it off. We panic one of the Archons and it shoots at the avatar, taking it down. Having the aliens do our dirty work for us in this way was very satisfying. Then some Mutons and Vipers spawn in as backup. We end up mind-controlling 2 of the Vipers and eradicating everything else. And I've been buffing Bobette's aim with Covert Ops for almost the whole game, so she's absolutely lethal with that pistol. Unless the enemy is in full cover, she's basically guaranteed to hit. I deliberately move Kindness to the other side of the map, seeing as that's where I'm expecting the next lot of reinforcements to come from, but I actually get it wrong and the next avatar appears on the same side as the last reinforcements. Now we've still got 5 troops total on that side of the map, including our 2 snacks, so I'm not too worried. And, in fact, I really don't need to be worried at all. Bobette takes down the avatar single-handedly with Fanfire. Now there are still 2 Andromedons over there, so we're not out of the woods yet, but Bobette is incredible. I know I keep saying it, but this lady is just absurdly OP. Now we get the Andromedons to second form, and I think they're going to be too far away to melee us, so we should be fine. We also use Haywire Protocol to take control of one of them, and I think that's the first time we've used that ability this entire campaign. Now, some sectoids have appeared on Kindness's side of the room, but we make short work of them. However, they're soon replaced with 3 Andromedons. Now, that's a pretty brutal pod. Meanwhile, on Bobette's side of the chamber, we receive some more Mutons. We use a stasis on one Andromedon and we dominate another, so just like that, the pod of 3 Andromedons is now down to 1. And that 1 we're able to reduce to second form, so it's not going to be too dangerous. And then the final avatar appears, and I love how this sectoid is just hanging there over the ledge. Like, this would be the first thing these Advent soldiers see, the corpse of their fallen comrades strung up like a Christmas decoration. I don't think that's going to be good for their morale. Now, meanwhile, possibly unexpectedly, the Mutons are actually causing more problems than the Andromedons. The Commander's avatar is out of abilities since they're all on cooldown, so he can't do anything, and our Vipers can't really do much either. Their tongue grab attack doesn't work on non-human enemies. So long story short, 2 of the Mutons end up surviving. Now, the first one grenades one of the Vipers and our Andromedon wreck, so that's fine. The second one then grenades Hyundai and our Avatar. Now, that's not a big deal either, both of them survive, and Hyundai doesn't take any damage because of Fortress, but losing health on our Avatar is obviously not ideal, so we want to take down the enemy Avatar this turn and do away with this campaign. And Hard Viper is able to grapple behind a said Avatar and lay waste to it with Fanfire. Now, his pistol isn't quite as strong as the Darklaw, so the Avatar does hang on with a smidgen of HP, but Kindness can move in with her Katana, and we can put it down, and that is another run complete. And I have to be honest, this was one of the worst runs I've ever done, possibly the worst ever. I mean, look at our finish time, it's June of 2036 in the game. That's even later in game time than what we finished the PsyOps only run. Now, things definitely got easier as we progressed, but that early game was ruthless, and it's the reason this run took so long. Not being able to do much at the start of the game meant that we missed out on the first engineer that you would normally get. That really slowed down our progress on the strategic layer, and not being able to kill enemies to score promotions slowed us down on the tactical layer. Also, not to mention having to wait to level up the bonds before taking out the Chosen. There were a lot of roadblocks in this run, it really was a tough one. And honestly, without rolling the order that reduced Chosen knowledge acquisition at the beginning of the game, this run could have been even more difficult, maybe impossible. Having that bonus bought us a lot of extra time before we had to do any of the Chosen Stronghold assaults, and if we had to go in to do those assaults early, who knows how it could have gone. I should also mention tactical analysis, that came in really clutch on a couple of missions too, and this run could have gone much worse if we didn't get that. But it's all in the past now, this run is over, and I'm honestly pretty happy about that. So I hope you like this one, and I'll have another video for you soon. Please consider doing the usual things of liking the video, commenting, and subscribing to the channel. Have a great day, and I hope to see you again soon.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take sh**. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take sh**. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. Gonna learn the consequence of being incompetent. Mental health is confidence, dreams and some honestness. I'm not here to save the day, that's for you to take away. I could play a million mind games, but instead I say something not illogical, something that is topical. Rub it on and watch it go, make yourself unstoppable. Dreams are irresponsible, but they're always possible. If you just believe, you could be so remarkable. Thoughts in my head, a collage and they spread. I'll be great one day, going off of my meds. No, I'm not giving up, no, I'm not giving in. I will make it.